All right, so before we get into what I thought of this film, let me just tell you how I came about it. Uh, Over the weekend, I was listening to a podcast that I listen to semi-frequently, and it's called The Daily Rios. It's hosted by Peter Rios, and it's his daily podcast. It's similar to what I do. I try to do daily. He actually does daily on his. Much more successful at it than I am. But on this show, I noticed his latest episode was about this movie, this documentary called Stuntman, and it was a sit down 2 hour interview with the director, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know that Stuntman was something that was coming out on Disney Plus. Had no idea, but I just saw it and I was like, huh, okay, maybe I'll check that out later. But then, the next morning, I logged on to Disney Plus and I saw this movie, Stuntman, and I'm like, huh, I wonder if that's the same movie, and so it turns out that the director of this film, Stuntman, is a fan of the Daily Rios and was more than willing to go in there and talk about the film. And not only that, he's a big lover of comic books. He has a big comic books background. And, the Daily Rios, a lot of times, is in that comic genre. So it's either comic books or comic book films, or he does some stuff on theater, all kinds of different things, but a lot of comic books. Peter Rios was one of the hosts of CGS back in the day, Comic Geek Speak. So, people know him for his comics content and his comics background. So this director, though, has a love for classic comics. So he comes on this show not only to talk about his new film Stuntman, which is releasing on Disney Plus, huge deal, right? But also to chat about comic books and comic books, in movies, how it relates to film. So that's the first thing I saw, and I was like, oh, okay, now I have an incentive to go check it out, because my son was watching Stuntman. He's like, oh, I'm watching this documentary, Stuntman. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I was like, I think a guy I know did an interview with the director of that. I'm going to go check it out. So I go check it out, and I love it. I love it. Absolutely. It's such a great interview that I'm inspired to go watch the film. And, that's a credit to Peter, but also a credit to Kurt Matilla, the director. So when I kind of hear about what the film's about, then I want to check it out. So I go and I watch it, and I am really caught off guard by this thing, because I was not expecting to care as much as I did. I was just kind of like, it sounds interesting, I'll go check it out. But I'm telling you, I love this film. Absolutely loved it. And I'm not gonna spoil how it ends and everything, just in case people watching this haven't seen the film. Please go watch it. It's not that long. It's an hour and 27 minutes, I believe. So, pretty quick watch and a delight. It is the story of this stuntman, Eddie Braun. He's been a stuntman, Hollywood stuntman, doing stunts for films for more than 30 years. And he idolizes Evel Knievel, and he has this idea that he wants to complete the jump, the rocket jump of Snake River Canyon, the one that Evel Knievel could not get across, the one that he didn't make. This guy's, he's like, man, if I can make that would just be like the ultimate, kind of ending to my career, the bookmark the bookend for my life. And so it's a really good story, because it's not only, about this guy who's a stuntman and wants to complete this crazy, insane jump. It's also about how he's a family man. Like, he's a father of 4, and he's a husband, and he's a regular guy. On top of that, though, he is this crazy stuntman who does these insane things for films, like wrecking cars and, jumping off bridges, and it's insane. It's really insane. But it's not the insanity of his stunts that make this film. The thing that makes this film so great is the heart. It has so much heart. Like it's enthralling, man. It's like I don't know how else to put it. It became so interesting. It made me care about something I had no interest in whatsoever. And I think that's kind of the goal of any documentary, is to really make you care about something that maybe you didn't even know about before. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is something I really care to see how it plays out. And you know, you get more interested in whatever the subject matter is. But there's also a little subplot. There's a side story as well, because there's also the story of the guy who is building the rocket that is going to shoot him across Snake River Canyon. And the reason that's so interesting is because the guy's father, who is creating the rocket, the guy's father was the one who created the original rocket to launch Evel Knievel across Snake River Canyon. And, you know, he didn't make it, and for decades, a lot of people have blamed him, you know, for him not making it, saying it was a failed attempt at building this rocket. And this was a major rocket builder for NASA. Like, this isn't some Joe Blow building a rocket in his garage. Like, this guy, one of the like founding people of NASA and building rockets. So, you know, it felt like his name had been tarnished by him creating this rocket that did not get Evel Knievel across this canyon. And so his son has had this lifelong mission of proving that his dad's designs were capable of pulling off this task, that his dad wasn't, you know, a failure in this regard, and that, you know, it wasn't his fault that the rocket didn't get him across. So you also have that story, as well as this guy wanting redemption. So you've got, you know, Eddie Braun trying to complete this task that his idol couldn't complete, and there's even more than that, even deeper than that. So then you got Robert Truex, which is the guy trying to, you know, restore his father's name to, you know, greatness by showing that his plans would work, that it wasn't his fault that the rocket didn't complete the task. But then you've got this other subplot where it's about the town where this took place, where there's a lot of hard feelings because of the crazy crowds that the original 1970s Evel Knievel jump brought to this small farming community. And they just left it a mess, and they destroyed things, and they trashed the place, and just did not treat the place with respect at all. And when they left it in, you know, shambles. It was disgusting, really. And so this town, you know, Eddie Braun has to go in here and convince this town that has really hard feelings for Evel Knievel to let him come in and do the exact same thing that Evel Knievel tried to do, you know, 40 years earlier. So there's just so much subtext to this thing. There's so much underlying story. You know, there's so much more than just some stuntman who wants to jump a canyon. It's way deeper than I expected it could possibly be, and it blew me away. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you how it plays out exactly. It might not play out exactly as you think it might, but I will tell you that it is definitely worth a watch. I implore you, please go watch this film. Really fantastic documentary. Also, what you should do, because, I mean, obviously this interview was so influential to me, it made me go watch the film, that's how good it was, is check out the interview over on the Daily Rios, because that thing is fantastic. And I'll put a link in the description. If you're listening to the podcast, I'll put a link in the show notes. And yeah, go check it out. And go, like I said, listen to the interview too, because it's really fantastic interview. Rios is a fantastic interviewer, comes up with really insightful questions for his guests. But on top of that, his guest was just really fun to listen to. And another cool thing is his guest is such a lover of comic books and film, obviously. You know, he directed this film, Stuntman. But, you know, he has this kind of goal in the back of his head that he's always had, where he would love to direct one of these big budget Marvel films. And I say, after watching Stuntman, I say, fucking give it to him, man. Fucking give it to him, because this film, like I said, made me care about something I had no interest in before. By the end, I'm like welling up with tears. That's how good this thing was. So fantastic job, Kurt Matilla, and great interview, Peter Rios. If you enjoy this video or this podcast, however it is that you're listening, please subscribe to the channel. I try to do this daily. I'm not perfect, but I do my best. And it's not always this. A lot of times it is movie reviews, but sometimes it's other entertainment or pop culture things. Sometimes it's just stories from my questionable youth. But if you're interested in getting something new and interesting in your feed every day, then please subscribe for more. And if you decide to stick around, then I will talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks.